As an investigator, my main responsibility is to investigate the reports we get of child abuse and neglect. That can vary from different forms of abuse. You know, we have different definitions that we go by in the Texas Family Code, but we investigate all forms. We go by the Texas Family Code. We go by the definitions of abuse and neglect per the Texas Family Code. And so when we validate for any type of abuse or neglect, that's what we would use as a guideline to determine if abuse or neglect has occurred. We have 3 different ways, really, that families can participate in services through CPS. The very first stage when we get involved with a family is the investigation stage, which is what I do. I'm an investigator. If we determine that abuse or neglect did occur, or that there continue to be risks to the children in the home, then we could refer the case to what we call family-based safety services. That's a whole another group of people that take over the case after the investigation stage, and they would offer services to the family while the children are still in the home, or maybe while the children are placed with relatives. We don't have any legal custody of the children at that point in time, but through that, through the family-based safety services, they can participate in therapy, family therapy, individual therapy, maybe drug and alcohol treatment. Of course, we provide drug testing, parenting classes, lots of different things that just to maintain the safety of the kids, either with the parents or with relatives, so that we don't have to take custody. If we determine that kids can't be safe in the home with a parent or a relative for whatever reason, then the same services are offered to those parents, but the children are placed in a foster home, or we take legal custody of the children at that point in time, and then we offer services to the parents, but it goes through the courts, so then the judge decides when the kids go back to live with mom and dad. They're either classified as neglectful supervision, which could range anywhere from drug use, you know, maybe the parents using drugs, not providing proper supervision because they're not in the right state of mind. Neglectful supervision could also include allowing a child to be with someone else that's using some type of drug or mind-altering substance, maybe leaving a child home alone, the parent's not there, the child's too young to be home alone, allowing the child to be be in the home while domestic violence is occurring. That would put the child at risk. There's also physical abuse, which is obviously when the child has some type of physical injury that appears to be inflicted or non-accidental. That, you know, usually requires some type of medical care. You know, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's the kid got a black eye and they said the dad punched him. I mean, we do classify that as physical abuse. Sometimes kids might have a bruise on their leg from getting a spanking with dad's hand or mom's hand or whatever. We do look at that as a form of physical abuse, but at the same time we can kind of look at that sometimes as an over-discipline type issue and not necessarily that they meant to hurt the child. You know, sometimes people are really meaning to hurt children, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're trying to discipline and it gets out of hand. Of course, there's emotional abuse, which is incredibly difficult to substantiate because it's hard to find. All you have is the kid, you know, telling you how they feel about it, and you have to prove that it is a impairment to their mental well-being or physical well-being in some way. There's sexual abuse, of course, that's the whole gamut of anything sexual that happens to a child by an adult or another child. There's physical neglect, which is where, you know, kids don't have the proper things to provide for their daily life. You know, maybe their home is dirty and it's a health and safety hazard to the child, or maybe there's not enough food in the home. Maybe they're just not being fed on purpose. If it's only a poverty issue, we don't consider that. It's only if we've offered them help and they didn't want help, and it's pretty deliberate that they're not providing for the children, is when we validate physical neglect. The majority of cases, in some form or fashion, that's what it comes down to. Having lower caseloads, not as many investigations per investigator, not as many cases per caseworker. Sometimes the demands are so high, and there's so many things going on. Like you just saw Eddie leave. He had 2 or 3 things that he had to go right now. And sometimes that makes it difficult to be in every place at every time. And then on the other hand, we try to keep kids with their parents as much as possible. And if children die at the hand of their parents, then, it's our attempt to keep them in their home and not remove children every single time we go out. It's better for kids to be with their parents if they can be safe. I think it's a combination. I don't know for sure if there's more abuse happening here, or if it's just that more people are aware of the concerns and risks to children in this area. We're in a pretty conservative type area, and so when, for instance, teachers and school personnel and churches and things like that, when they see things that they think just aren't right, they're going to report that to us. I don't know what our statistics say about substantiated cases of child abuse, but we probably investigate way more than anyone else in the state. But that's okay with us. I think we want to make sure that kids are safe, and it's kind of scary if you think about the highly populated areas of like Houston and Dallas, and Lubbock, Texas is doing more for kids in this area than they are. So I don't know what the answer to that is specifically, but now, is it as much as we want? No, it's never as much as we want. I think that, and I can't talk on specifics about that because that's not my job either. But my understanding is that they're not cutting frontline staff this year, and they're not cutting services for our clients this year. That has happened in the past, and it makes it difficult to provide all the services that we want to for families. But I guess it jades you in a way that sometimes you think that everyone's bad. Sometimes you look at every single person in the world as a threat to your own children or to every child, and you just think bad things about people, and then so it takes a lot to really just think, oh, that's a normal family. That's not, there's nothing, I shouldn't be suspecting that something bad is happening there, but you're always in that, just that frame of mind, like assessing, what's happening with the family, just when they're walking through the mall or eating dinner together or whatever. It just kind of clouds your mind with impure thoughts, I guess, because all the terrible things that do happen to kids.
What is the most, I guess, rewarding part of your job, and what's the toughest part of your job?
The toughest part always is having to remove a child or having to place them outside of the home, because it's hard on the child and it's hard on the parent, and it's heartbreaking sometimes you think about, I have my own children, and so I think about, what if someone came in and said, your kids can't stay with you anymore? And so I always try to have a lot of, empathy and just help the parents through that part. It's hard to hear about abuse and neglect that kids tell you. We interview the kids and they tell us, this is what happened. And a lot of times they're really matter of fact about it, and like that's just normal. And so that's hard sometimes too. Rewarding, I don't think so. I'll say that I think a lot of people give CPS a bad reputation. We're only looked at as the bad guys. We always kind of get the raw end of the deal. When something bad happens, it's because CPS didn't do anything about it. But a lot of times our hands are tied when it comes to certain things. We can't just go take every kid out of a home. We have to have a judge's approval to do that, and there has to be enough evidence, and enough, the circumstances have to be what would allow us to do a removal. So